We are just under 24 hours away from the Denver Broncos home opener versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. This was originally thought to be the Russell Wilson return to Denver game, and technically it still is. Russell will be on the sideline, likely as the emergency third string quarterback, but with him dealing with a calf injury, Justin Fields is in line to start for the Pittsburgh Steelers. For the Broncos, obviously, things did not go their way week one in Seattle. Offensively, they really struggled to get things going. Bo Nix had a very shaky NFL debut. The wide receiver and offensive line play was about as bad as it gets. They couldn't run the football. Some of that was on coaching. Some of that was on personnel. On the defensive side of the ball, they were lights out in the first half. Forced two safeties, had an interception, really capitalized on Seahawk mistakes. In the second half, Seattle started to run the football on them, and Denver really struggled to be able to stop things after that. So it was a real struggle for the Broncos defense there in that second half. I thought Vance Joseph really struggled to make adjustments against the Seahawks adjustments. Those are all things that we're going to watch in this game. But I want to go through the Pittsburgh Steelers roster here and break down what we should expect from this Steelers team, because they are a very daunting opponent on paper, especially that defense. Offensively, I think the Steelers do have some question marks that the Broncos can exploit, but there's no beating around the bush. This Steelers defense is going to be really hard to beat, and this is going to be a dogfight, Broncos country. I fully expect this game to be a low-scoring affair, like 17-14, 17-16. I do not anticipate points being scored. Whatever the under is on the betting lines, I would probably take it. I bet Vegas is also thinking this is going to be a low-scoring affair. The Steelers won in a dogfight against Atlanta last week because they really were able to capitalize on Atlanta's mistakes in the form of turnovers. And obviously, Denver had some turnovers in their own regard in Seattle week one, so the Steelers are going to be looking to capitalize on that. Starting off with the quarterback position for the Steelers, as we already said, Russell Wilson is not going to play in this game. He was the emergency third-string quarterback last week for the Steelers in Atlanta. That's why he was in full uniform on the sideline, even though he wasn't playing. So I fully anticipate that Russell Wilson will be in full uniform on the sideline in this game, once again designated as the emergency third-string quarterback. Kyle Allen will be the direct backup to Justin Fields. As far as Justin Fields is concerned, I thought that he did make some nice plays in that Steelers game versus Atlanta. I thought that he did a pretty good job taking care of the football, not making any egregious mistakes, not putting the Steelers defense in bad positions on the field. I thought that Justin Fields did a really good job of just commanding their offense. One thing that was notable is that Arthur Smith schematically decided not to allow Justin Fields to throw over the middle of the field at all in their game versus Atlanta. Smith claims that is because of Jesse Bates over the middle of the field playing safety for Atlanta. Obviously, Arthur Smith knows that Jesse Bates has the ability to capitalize on mistakes over the middle of the field, so he decided to keep his entire passing offense outside the numbers. I'm curious to see if Arthur Smith is going to allow Justin Fields to spread the ball around a little bit more, but Fields has historically been a quarterback who has struggled to throw over the middle of the field and has thrived a little bit more outside the numbers, very similar to Russell Wilson in that regard. So I anticipate the Broncos are going to play a bit more middle of the field open coverage in this game because of those deficiencies with Justin Fields throwing over the middle. But you are risking the Steelers' run game getting going if you play a lot of split safety to high coverage. So Vance Joseph is going to have to find that happy balance of being able to come down and contain the Steelers' run game with Jalen Warren, Najee Harris, and even Cordero Patterson back there. And then obviously Justin Fields is a threat to take off in his own right. I feel like the Broncos' edge rushers are going to have to play contain in this game and essentially sacrifice their pass rush in order to keep Justin Fields from breaking out of the pocket. Now, there will be instances, especially on third down, where Vance Joseph is going to light up Justin Fields, blitz him, and make him think on his feet really quickly. But again, you are really risking Justin Fields being able to make a couple of missed tackles there and really make something happen out of nothing. He has the ability to make chicken salad out of chicken feathers when a play breaks down, especially with his legs. So that's one thing to definitely keep an eye on. The Broncos need to emphasize keeping Justin Fields in the pocket, QB spy on him at all times. As far as weapons for the Steelers are concerned, George Pickens is quickly establishing himself as one of the top dog alpha receivers in the NFL. He's a contested catch freak. He comes down with 50-50 balls like they're 80-20 balls. It's absolutely insane. And his speed is nothing to sneeze at either. Pat Surtain is going to have a very tough challenge trying to guard George Pickens one-on-one. The Broncos played a lot of man coverage against the Seattle Seahawks week 1. That seems to be the new DNA of this Vance Joseph defense is man coverage. So I think that we're going to see a lot of true one-on-one matchups, Pat Surtain versus George Pickens. And last week against DK Metcalf, a very similar type receiver. Yes, Surtain did get a couple of pass interference calls, but overall, I thought he did a really good job locking down DK Metcalf, and I expect him to do the exact same thing here against George Pickens. On the other side, you've got Van Jefferson, who's a solid, reliable number 2 receiver. I feel like Riley Moss should hopefully have a much better day against Van Jefferson than he did against a wily veteran in Tyler Lockett, who is one of the best route runners in the NFL and really was able to exploit Riley Moss on just a couple of perfectly timed back shoulder fades from Geno Smith. Really nothing Riley Moss could do on those plays. And then the final play to seal the game for Seattle, it was a crossing route versus man coverage. Geno Smith did a really good job leading Tyler Lockett on that one. Again, not much that Riley Moss could do. I thought Riley played a really good game, and I think that he's going to have a much better outing, at least volume production-wise, against a guy like Van Jefferson rather than a guy like Tyler Lockett, especially when Tyler has such good chemistry with his quarterback in Geno Smith. In the slot, the Steelers have a couple of different guys that they can utilize. Calvin Austin, 2022 4th-round pick, and then Scotty Miller, the former Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Both of those guys are speed merchants, so I think Jaquan McMillan is going to have to hold his own there, which I'm very confident he will be able to do. They also elevated Ben Skoranek from the practice squad, the former Rams and Texans wide receiver, and Roman Wilson, their 3rd-round pick from this year, is questionable to play in this game. I'm not going to expect to see Wilson, especially with the elevation of Ben Skoranek. So really, the Broncos are going to have to worry the most about George Pickens, Van Jefferson, Scotty Miller, and Calvin Austin. Ben Skoranek's a guy who can even line up in the backfield and play fullback. He's one of those utility players at the wide receiver position. So keep an eye on Skoranek maybe getting a couple of sneaky plays for the Steelers offense. Arthur Smith, as we all know, kind of likes to utilize some of these no-name receivers that you don't exactly expect to get the ball. Ben Skoranek kind of fits that bill perfectly. For the Steelers' offensive line, it's not exactly the best unit in the NFL. They've got Dan Moore Jr. at left tackle, who's fine. He's not really the big concern there. Isaac Seumalo is out for this game with a pectoral injury. Their left guard, who they signed as a free agent a couple of years ago from the Philadelphia Eagles, one of the better guards in the business. So that's going to be a big loss for the Steelers. I'm assuming Spencer Anderson is going to step in and start in his place. Zach Frazier, a rookie center. Rookie centers are definitely exploitable in the NFL. Keep an eye on Frazier going against guys like DJ Jones, Malcolm Roach. I think both of those guys have a chance to exploit Zach Frazier here. James Daniels is a veteran at right guard, formerly of the Chicago Bears. He's fine. Broderick Jones, though, at right tackle, really struggled in the preseason. I think that Jonathan Cooper, Nick Bonito, Baron Browning, all those guys had solid days against Seattle. They could look to feast against a guy like Broderick Jones. Obviously, you've got Pat Freiermuth at tight end along with Darnell Washington. Both of those guys are probably going to see the field extensively. Arthur Smith likes to run a lot of 12 personnel, 2 tight end sets. And then they've got a couple of other backup tight ends as well, and Michael Pruitt, the former Falcon, and Connor Hayward, who is Cam Hayward's little brother. All those guys have potential to get some volume production because Arthur Smith loves to utilize his tight ends. Moving into the defensive side of the ball for the Pittsburgh Steelers, we all know that this is the side of the ball that the Steelers make their money on. They always have had good defenses under Mike Tomlin. Every single year, you expect the Steelers defense to put up a dogfight. They're physical, they're tough, they're aggressive, and this year is no exception to that rule. And it all starts off, of course, with number 90, TJ Watt. In my opinion, he is the best edge rusher in the game right now. Sorry, Browns fans. I really believe that TJ Watt just has that ability to take his game to the next level and really wreck things at the line of scrimmage. He pretty much individually wrecked the game against Atlanta with him getting pressure in the backfield. He ate the lunch of Falcons right tackle Caleb McGarry. So I think that obviously against Mike McGlinchey, who gave up a team-high 5 pressures last week against the Seattle Seahawks, the Steelers are going to look to exploit that matchup. But on the other side, Alex Highsmith is nobody to sneeze at either. He's also a very good edge rusher, and he's going to give Garrett Bowles some fits. Bowles was nicked up in the game against Seattle. He's going to play in this game, but going against Alex Highsmith, that's definitely going to be a tough matchup. Alex Highsmith, I feel like, could be a number 1 edge rusher really anywhere else, but given the fact that he plays next to TJ Watt, he is the number 2, but that's still a very daunting matchup for the Denver Broncos having to go up against Alex Highsmith. On the interior defensive line, Cam Hayward has been the anchor of that unit for a very long time. You've got Keanu Benton, you've got Larry Ogunjobi. All of those guys are solid veteran interior defensive linemen. Well, I guess Benton's in his 2nd year, but all those guys are very solid defensive linemen that could make things difficult for the Broncos' run game to get things going, and they can generate pressure from the interior as well. It's going to be a very tough matchup for the Broncos' interior offensive line. I thought Luke Wattenberg played really well at center. Quinn Miners had a tough day out there against Seattle, especially against guys like Leonard Williams. So I'm curious to see if Quinn Miners has a better day. Obviously, just signed that massive extension, has been the Broncos' best offensive lineman for the last several years, but did not have a great day against Seattle. He said it himself, it was the worst performance of his professional career, and to be honest, I agree with him. Hopefully he bounces back. When it comes to the linebacking core for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and by the way, Peyton Wilson is also a guy on the edge to keep an eye on. 3rd-round pick this year. Definitely keep an eye on him. He's listed amongst the inside linebackers here, but I've seen him play more on the edge. Linebackers, they've got Elandon Roberts and Patrick Queen. Queen did not play particularly well against the Atlanta Falcons, so that's a matchup that the Broncos could look to exploit in the passing game with Tyler Beatty, who they elevated from the practice squad, as well as possibly Blake Watson. And then in the secondary, you've got Joey Porter Jr., you've got Dante Jackson as your 2 corners, Beanie Bishop as your nickel, and then you've got Deshaun Elliott, Minka Fitzpatrick at safety, a couple of veterans there, and even their depth guys like Miles Killebrew, DeMonte Casey, Terrell Edmonds, all of those guys are veterans in the NFL. This is, again, going to be a very tough matchup for this Broncos offense, but the reason why I feel like things are going to be a little bit easier for the Broncos offense than they were in Seattle is because this Steelers defense is all about winning up front with fundamentals and just beating you with aggressive physical man coverage. And they will blitz, don't get me wrong, but they don't run all these exotic blitzes and simulated pressures and confusing looks at the line of scrimmage that the quarterback has to process. Generally, you know what you're going to get up front when you look at the Steelers, you look at their front, you look at their secondary. At the line of scrimmage, you generally know what you're going to get from the Pittsburgh Steelers. They don't mix up their coverages overly extensively. Like, they don't rotate their safeties after the snap, every single snap, like the Seattle Seahawks did. Stuff like that. I think it's going to be easier for Bo Nix to be able to process stuff at the line of scrimmage. I'm also hopeful that this Broncos offense is able to learn from their mistakes last week, especially Sean Payton. Get Bo Nix out on the perimeter, use some read option plays, roll him out, take advantage of that athleticism, and additionally, run the football and commit to it. I think if the Broncos are able to do that, then they will be able to keep up in this dogfight with the Pittsburgh Steelers. What it's going to depend on is which team turns the ball over, which team makes mistakes. And I think this Steelers offense with Justin Fields does have the ability to put the ball in harm's way sometimes. They've got the tendency to do that. So, I don't know, man. I think that the Broncos defense, just like last week, will be able to capitalize on some of these mistakes that the Steelers offense make, and that's why I give this slight advantage to the Denver Broncos in this game, especially with Justin Fields playing. I think it's going to be a low-scoring, dogfight type of a game, but I do have the Denver Broncos winning it 17-16. I think the Broncos are going to be able to win on a walk-off field goal from Will Lutz. That's going to be the difference. I think whoever has the ball for the final drive at the end of the game is going to end up winning it. It's going to be all about situational football, clock management, and just not making mistakes and shooting yourself in the foot. The Broncos are going to have to clean things up from a penalty perspective. That's going to be big. Bringing in the injury report for this game, starting off with the Denver Broncos side of things, Devon Vele is going to be the only guy out for this game for Denver. We talked about in a separate video what impact Devon Vele not being out there is going to make. As far as the Steelers, Russell Wilson, not going to play. Roman Wilson is questionable as well with an ankle, probably leaning towards not playing. And then Isaac Seumalo with a pec is out. Cam Hayward, Dan Moore, Larry Ogunjobi, Patrick Queen, and Darius Rush, all those guys are full go for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So let me know in the comments section below, Broncos country, how do you think this matchup is going to go? Do you think Bo Nix and this offense is going to look any more comfortable and confident out there after their week 1 struggles in Seattle? And what do you think the final score for this game is going to be? Drop those comments down below, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts, as always. Be sure to leave a like on this video as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. I would really appreciate it, guys. Those are both free and easy ways to show your support. Helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out and helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country just like you and me. And until next time, guys, I am your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.